Hey guys,
Yeah.
you've got 6 seconds. What are you doing? Go.
Sitting at my desk.
Munch.
Ben? Munch? Okay. I side with Ben. I choose to munch. Specifically on Nuggie. I pull it out of my pocket as my bonus action and use my action to eat my Nuggie.
Yo, doesn't that, like, heal you?
According to last episode, yes. But, yeah, that was the entirety of my intro.
Nice.
Because today we're talking about actions that you could do during combat, and that's what we all just did. Michael chose to sit still. I'm guessing he held his action. I don't know. Me and Ben launched.
I mean, I was
yeah.
just asked what I was doing, so I said I'm sitting at my desk because
That's
that's what
true.
I'm literally doing.
I guess at some point I should do our actual intro. Hello and welcome to Travelers, Tips, and Tales. I'm Jake.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Ben.
And like I said not too long ago, today we're talking about actions we can take during combat. I would expect this one to be kind of a short one, just because there's not too much to cover, but we think it's very essential that we cover this for people that need help with this kind of area of
Yeah,
D&D.
we decided to run this podcast for like people of all kind of groups where they're different play styles or different points in their gaming life, where either they're newbies or they're pros. If we're gonna be a newbie one, we really should have done this one sooner.
Yeah,
But here it is.
But
We eventually did it.
It still happened at some point.
Better late than never.
So, first
Dude,
things
you owe me a
first,
nugget.
guys. Something I think is very important to cover this episode. When might combat occur?
That is a good point. When would combat occur?
Combat can occur anytime your DM feels like being evil. Anytime you guys pick a fight when you shouldn't, or maybe you should. Anytime there is a guy you need to murder. Anytime the guards are chasing you for murdering someone.
Yep.
And you get caught.
Anytime you get jumped while on the road.
Yep. Bandits, that's a thing. Anytime there's a boss fight. Anytime you fight.
Yeah.
Combat occurs.
And also, technically, combat... we probably shouldn't really use the word combat, because it could also happen when you're not fighting things. Anytime... What we're talking about here is anytime that your DM asks for initiative. And basically, all that means doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be hostile and start fighting things. It just means that your DM, he or she, decide that at this point on, they want you to start taking things in turn order, so that way everyone can do as much as they want to do as possible. In correlation to about how frequently they could, compared to others.
Or maybe it is combat and just you don't feel like fighting.
Yeah,
everybody
or
else
maybe
is
it
fighting
is-
you or doing
yeah.
something else. That is also acceptable.
Yep.
I think I personally have run a combat where Jake was in a different room and he was aware as a person that there was combat, but his character was just like, eh. And every turn I would be like, do you want to go check it out? And he was like, nope. And I was like, all right, continue.
With my action, I would like to read 3 more sentences of this book. Or whatever, But yeah.
So, a thing you touched on in the intro, but I think is also important. In D&D 5th edition, a turn is 6 seconds. In some games, that changes. In some games, it's like 10 seconds. 5th edition, it's 6 seconds. So, 10 turns equals 1 minute.
Yes, and everybody in combat has the same amount of stuff that they could do in that 6-second turn. You have 1 action, 1 reaction, 1 bonus action, and 1 movement action. The reaction part is kind of finicky, and we'll explain that more later. But you have your action, bonus, and movement. And your movement is based off of your size and race. So you could have a multitude of different movements, but that's just how much you can move. That's how far you could physically get in one turn. And then your action
Hold
is
on,
kind
hold on,
of
hold
what
on.
you want to do.
So movement, another important thing about movement is it can be broken up between your other actions.
That's true.
So if you only want to move 5 feet at a time, you can be like 5 feet, attack. That's one action. 5 feet, I have like 2 attacks, so I'll take another attack. I want to move like 10 more feet, and then I'll have to use my bonus action. Then I want to move back the other 10 feet that I haven't moved yet.
Mm-hmm.
You can do that with your movement.
And that could be said with all of your actions, no matter what. You could, if your action, the action that you take, has multiple parts to it, like the attack action, and you have multiple attacks, you can actually use your bonus action in the middle of those 2 attacks if you want.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's a lot of things that you could do with just your bonus and action, your bonus action and your normal action, and I guess we should start going into what exactly those things are now.
Yeah.
So the first thing, the obvious thing that you can do with your action is you can take the attack action, and that means different things for different people. Some classes have 1 attack, like rogues or something like that, and they will attack once and then they'll be done with their action. Other classes, like monks or fighters, attack multiple times, and they can split those up however they choose in between bonus actions and movements, however they want. Also, some other things can also trigger other things for certain classes. Like monks specifically, they have a feature that allows them to, if they use the attack action, they can attack with their bonus action. So that could also cover your bonus action in certain instances. There's also features to be able to do offhand attacks with your bonus action in the game, whether it be through your subclass or class or feat or whatever.
Also, if you have a class or a subclass that gives you extra attack, that is another thing where you have to take the attack action in order to benefit.
Yeah. So that kind of covers attacks. The next thing on our little handy dandy list here is for kind of the other half of the classes that we have here. So all the martial classes are most likely to take the attack action during their turn, whereas all the other caster classes are going to probably use this action most likely. It will be your go-to action, and that is the cast a spell action. And that can be used on a multitude of anything based off of what spell you cast. Obviously, some spells are reactions, bonus actions, and actions, a combination of all of them. And that just determines, what you use for that thing, and you will do whatever your spell does, and follow through with the rules based off of what spell you choose.
It's probably my favorite action that I can take in combat.
Yes. One thing to be noted though, is that you can only cast 1 spell during the same turn. And what that means is that you can still use magic more than once per turn, but only one of them can expend an actual spell slot. So you can use your action to cast a spell, and then you might be left with a bonus action that you most likely won't be able to use. Or you can use your bonus action to cast a spell for certain spells that use bonus actions to cast them. And then you could use your action to cast a cantrip if you want. Or some other, random ability that you might have, like Channel Divinity or something, based off of what class you are.
More specifically, if you cast the spell Dragon's Breath on yourself, the bonus action is to cast it, whereas the action is to use it. So you would be using both for 1 spell. In instances like that, that's how that would work.
Yeah.
And some spells even take up a bonus action of subsequent turns, like Spiritual Weapon. You can use a bonus action to cast it, and then to use it every turn after that, you use a bonus action.
Yeah, and
other
some
spells
even require you to have an action to keep concentrating on it every round.
Yeah,
like Witch Bolt. There's also other spells that use an action to cast it initially, and then on subsequent turns, so long as you keep concentrating on it, you can move it around or do whatever with the bonus action, like Flaming Sphere. There's a whole lot of complicated stuff that you could get into, but you just got to divvy up. As long as you don't expend a spell slot, you can still use a spell slot for your other actions if you have them.
Also, it's something that I kind of use in my games that it's never really come up because it's never needed to. But I actually, even though it can be game breaking, I just adjust encounters to compensate for it. I don't care whether your actual spell or your cantrip is either the action or bonus action, I still allow you to cast whatever. Because, yeah.
So in Michael's game specifically, you can cast willy-nilly. If you want to use the spell slots, go ahead. But in most games,
yeah, if you want to cast a spell that uses a spell slot as your action, go for it. If you want to also then use a spell that uses a spell slot for your bonus action, as long as it has the casting time of a bonus action, you can do it. I don't care.
That's honestly how I do most of my stuff too, until someone brought it up, and then I was like, yeah, I should probably change that. If no one had ever mentioned it to me, I wouldn't have cared.
Yeah, I do it the way rules written typically.
I believe the only way around it outside of homebrew rules is with a sorcerer quicken spell.
Or with a magic item.
Yes.
Or whatever, yeah. But that pretty much, I think we covered pretty much everything with casting a spell. So the next action you could use during combat is a pretty simple one, and that is the dash action. Basically, you can use this only as your main action. You can't use this as a bonus action unless otherwise stated, like such abilities as cunning action for rogues. But yeah. I was just giving one example. But basically, what this is you use your action and you can move one more set of your movement speed that turn. So you get to move twice as much.
If you are a rogue or a monk or can somehow figure out how to how to use it as a bonus action and an action, you can double up.
Yeah, so you can triple move.
Yeah, it stacks.
Yeah. Based off of, so long as you have the features to do so.
Yes.
Likewise, there's another, our next action is very similar in the sense, with the disengage action, also is only used as a main action, but can also be accessed with bonus actions based off of certain abilities, like cunning action again, and also monks get it as well with expending key points and whatnot. But what this does is you can leave 5 feet of a movement. You can leave the range of a hostile creature that is hostile against you. You can leave the range, and they would not get an attack of opportunity on you if they would have.
Yeah, which, because we haven't actually talked about it yet today, attack of opportunity is anytime a creature willingly leaves a space within 5 feet of you, you can take a melee attack against them as your reaction.
Yeah.
So that prevents that.
And that counts even if they leave a space within 5 feet of you to another space within 5 feet of you. You still get that attack of opportunity.
I don't think so. I'm not sure about that one. Even if it is a rule, I personally don't rule.
Yeah, I rule in the opposite direction.
If you stay within their range, then you never leave their range. That's how I rule.
However, one important thing to note is that disengage only works on one enemy at a time.
Yes.
So if you use your action as a disengage action, it only works on the one guy you used it on.
Mm-hmm. Hypothetically, if you were able to use this action multiple times, you could disengage from 2 people and maybe get away from both of them, so long as you have the features and whatnot to do so.
Yeah.
But moving on to the next action we have here is the dodge action. This, likewise, with the last 2 ones, can only be used as your main action. Most of these can only be really used with your main action, unless otherwise stated, by the way. But this one grants disadvantage on all other attacks on you. So instead of using an attack action per turn, maybe you would want to use the dodge action, and you can impose disadvantage on everything against you. Maybe you try and taunt somebody with your bonus action, and then you take the dodge action to make them less likely to hit you, which can always be helpful. Very good for if you're getting surrounded.
You can use it as a bonus action.
Yeah.
If you're a monk or if you're a rogue.
Rogues don't actually get this one with their bonus. But
yes, they do.
Yeah.
Nope. Not the dodge action.
Yeah, they do.
No.
You don't use it, but yes, they do. Cunning action gives you the
It's
dodge, disengage, or
hide.
Did not get dodge?
No.
I guess it's just monks. Damn, rogues suck.
Take it back. You won't see it coming, but I'm gonna stab you in the back later tonight. Anyways, the next action you can use in combat is the help action. This one is a lot less likely to be used. It's not very commonly used amongst D&D players for the most part, just because it's not too great, not too amazing. But basically, this is way better used in out of combat examples. Basically, using the help action, you can grant advantage on someone else on whatever they're doing because you're helping them.
Yeah. I will say, though, one way that this is extremely useful is if you're using the optional rule that we did for flanking, where instead of getting advantage by flanking someone, you get a +2 bonus. If, like, you're the wizard or something, and you want the rogue to have advantage, but they're only flanking with you, you can use the help action to give them advantage. That's how I rule that.
In that case, yeah, you can.
Because that makes it useful.
Like, you're like waving your hands and trying to distract the enemy, giving your opposing teammate advantage.
Yeah, or you just try to like feign an attack at them. You know, you're not actually trying to damage them. You're just trying to make them see it coming, so they can easily dodge it. But then you have their attention. Yeah. Right. Like that makes, in my opinion, that makes it useful in combat. Otherwise, there's not really much reason to.
Yeah, it is a lot more helpful out of combat though, because say someone is building something or whatever, and you know your DM asks you to make a blank check, and then you can, maybe not you, but one of your party members can say, I would like to use the help action, and then all of a sudden now you have advantage on that one roll that the DM was asking for. Which can be very helpful.
I don't know why, but like when you were describing the helping an enemy or the helping a teammate attack by kind of being as a distraction, for some reason the image in my mind is a monk is on one side and a barbarian is on the other, and the monk just like looks like he's about to hit the dude but then just hits the whip.
That, you know, I would argue that would probably get the enemy's attention.
And I would argue that the barbarian may just dab because he doesn't understand what's happening.
But while he's dabbing, he slaps the enemy for 1d4 damage.
On accident.
With advantage.
Yeah, plus
with
strength.
Advantage.
Yep, and then the rogue shows up.
And that's who the real teammate you were helping the whole time was.
No, the barbarian reckless attacked.
Yeah, he just did reckless attack. But yeah, moving on to the next action you can do during combat is the hide action. This one, I'm going to be real with you guys, one of my favorite ones. Basically, what the hide action is just you ask your DM to hide, and your DM, you know, depending on whether or not there's actually stuff to hide behind, because you can't exactly hide in the middle of a well-lit room, the DM will ask for you to make a stealth check, and then based off of other people's passive perceptions, you can, you know, be hidden from them or not, and that can always grant you advantage on attacks or whatever you might want to do next turn. For most people, this is a main action to be able to do, but for rogues, again, with the cunning action, they get it as a bonus action. Which is kind of like one of the bread and butters of the class, you know, because you have your turn, you start off, hopefully hidden from last turn, you attack, and then you maybe move to another spot, so it's less obvious on where you're going to be hiding from. You're like, where's that guy hidden? Maybe he's behind the same barrel he was last time that I just saw him shoot me with an arrow from. Yeah, so you can move to another hiding spot, and then with your bonus action, hide, and then continue, so on and so forth. Perfect for squishy rogues, because you can't hit what you can't see.
With the hide action, you're basically going to be that person in the movies that disappears right as like a bus passes the camera.
Yeah, 100%. That is
However,
exactly what it is.
I have to disagree with Jacob. you can hit what you can't see, so long as you have spells.
That's true.
I didn't ask how big the room was. I said I cast Fireball.
Fireball. Yes. Mike understands.
Moving on.
as the resident spellcaster main.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Moving on to reactions. This one is kind of a big one. So reactions are an action that you take off of your turn. So say it's Ben's turn right now, and Ben is the enemy attacking me, right? So Ben, you're attacking me. I'm just a little squishy wizard, and you're some big boy, right? And you roll to attack. Let's say you roll like a 22 to hit. Wait, no, I'm a wizard. Let's say you roll like a
13.
13 to hit. Yeah, I'm a wizard.
No, I got a 22. It's been decided.
Wait, no. You're ruining my example. You roll a 13 to hit. It's not amazing for you, but I'm a squishy wizard, so it would normally hit. But I am a prepared wizard, and I use one of my spells that has a reaction requirement to cast. And I cast the spell Shield, and I all of a sudden get +5 to my AC, making my AC 15 because I'm a squishy wizard with no dex. So all of a sudden Ben's attack no longer hits me. So that's kind of an example of what you could do with your reaction. There's a bunch of other abilities that use reactions. That's
additionally, reactions, like we mentioned earlier, opportunity attack. Someone leaves your space willingly.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't work if someone pulls them out of your space. That's another way to save someone from that.
Yeah.
So to forcibly pull them away. Another one, if you have the Sentinel feat, you can take reactions against people when they attack someone within 5 feet of you.
Yeah. There's a bunch of different examples that we can go on.
Yeah, I think
types of reactions.
I think one of my favorite reactions is if you're a tiefling or a spellcaster that has access to the spell Hellish Rebuke. That's a fun reaction spell. If somebody hits you with a melee attack, then you can use a reaction to cast Hellish Rebuke, dealing damage back to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My favorite thing to do with reactions as a dungeon master is to let people ask, hey, can I take that damage for him as a reaction, right? And I'll be like, you know what? Sure. I'll let you jump in the way of that
you
guy's
dive
sword.
In front of the bullet. Long as you're within 5 feet of the attack or whatever,
Yeah, it's that's fair. I'll let people be creative with it. I think it's fair.
Yeah. But yeah, that's just a couple examples of reactions. There's countless of other things that we could go on and on about reactions. But yeah. The next action that we are here to talk about is the ready action. And this one is
the most overlooked action in all of Dungeons and Dragons.
I use it all the time.
I wouldn't argue that. I feel like a lot of people still do it. But readying an action is just you holding on to your action until a later time.
I thought we were talking about the ready action, not holding an action.
That's what it is. Ready is readying an action.
So there's actually an action in D&D called ready, which is where you draw your weapons.
Oh.
It takes an action to draw your weapons in Dungeons and Dragons, but no one ever cares. I thought that's what we were talking about.
Oh, no. We're talking about literally readying an action.
Ah, okay. So holding it.
Yeah. You ready your action. So
see, it's the rule I was referencing was so overlooked you guys didn't even know it existed. Because it's dumb. Yeah, it takes an action to draw a weapon. For dual wielders, there is an actual feat that allows you to draw 2 in one action. And I'm like, you don't have to take that. It's dumb. I don't require it. You can draw your weapons as you attack. I don't care.
Yeah, that's just kind of stupid. As you're I the way I see it is that's part of your initiative. Is you're pulling out your weapons. That's how quickly you get your stuff out and you're ready to move,
The only time I think that it's important to utilize an action in that situation is if you are switching one weapon to another.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even then, if you flavor it right, I've even gotten away with not doing that. you can just be like, instead of putting my weapon away and drawing a new one, I'm just gonna drop this weapon and reach for it as I do so. Like reach for my other one.
Yeah.
As long as you're okay with it being on the floor now.
I'm pretty sure most DMs will allow that as just what is called a free action, which is just basically you doing something so small and pointless that you don't actually have to expend anything for it.
It has no major effect on the game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But so another action you could do is the ready action, which me and Michael started to talk about. or I guess you could call it the hold action. It's when you maybe you have this one thing you want to do, but you don't quite want to do it yet. Maybe you're a wizard that actually cares a little bit about who's in your fireball. And you want to use your free action that round to say, clear the area! And you hold your action to cast fireball until all of your party members get the heck out of the way. Or if they don't get the heck out of the way, just till right before your next turn.
Yeah, so the main thing with readying an action and holding an action is you are stating what you want to do and the parameters that need to be met for you to do it.
Yeah.
And
the way, yeah.
And
so
essentially,
you have to have like a trigger.
Yeah, so you're stating what the trigger is going to be. Now, the thing is with holding an action is once that trigger occurs, you can choose whether or not you actually want to go through with the action, because maybe you've changed your mind.
Yeah. I remember back when we were more newbies in D&D, we used to make it like very careful on your wording on like I remember one time I said I held my action to shoot the next person that came through the door of this door.
Mm-hmm.
And of course me meaning the next enemy, but of course the next person was one of my allies, and I think Ben at the time, who was the DM, was like, all right, shoot your shot. And I was like, wait, what? He was
here's
like,
the thing.
Said the next person.
Here's the thing. In old editions, that's the way it was, and that's the way I like it, so that's the way I play it to this day. That's still the way I DM it.
I personally don't like that, because at the end of the day, it's your character deciding at that moment whether they want to do something or not. So
yeah,
the
but it's also like
for
mentally
me,
preparing yourself, and then when it occurs, like it's real fast. Like it's even quicker than the 6 second time that you would know. It's less than a second that you get to choose to decide.
Yeah.
So it's like at the same time, and it makes sense that you don't get, and then after a second, you think about it, you're like, oh crap, I just shot the wrong guy.
Yeah, I mean that's how Ben rules it. I rule it differently. So this is where different games.
And I will say, if you are readying an action as a spellcaster, be very careful that you're not readying a very high level spell that you have any chance and any thought in your mind that you might not actually use it. Because if you ready a spell, you lose that spell slot regardless of if you actually carry out the action.
Yes, because you begin to cast the spell, which is enough to lose the spell slot.
So, spellcasters, be careful and be aware of what you're doing when you're readying a spell as an action.
Another thing to keep in mind for spellcasters when you're holding an action is if you start to hold a spell and you are already concentrating on another spell, the action of you holding that spell and waiting is now what you're concentrating on. So if you have some other buff that's going on, you're going to lose that buff. And also what that means is if you're holding this spell and someone attacks you with a melee attack or whatever, and you fail a concentration check, you now don't have that held action anymore because you lost concentration on the spell.
Yeah, you lost not only the spell you were concentrating on for this action that you're holding, but then you also lose the spell that you were holding.
So holding an action can be very dangerous for spellcasters, but could also be very effective depending on how coordinated your group is.
Yeah.
Holding actions are really good for before the combat, even. So maybe your party somehow actually successfully stealthed up on some people, and maybe everyone on your party can get a really good ranged attack, and all of your spellcasters can get their high level ranged spells out first turn of combat, and maybe could totally sway an entire combat.
Yeah, I think like when I was running La Cria, you guys did that. You guys snuck
Yep.
up on the boss, and you guys
Yep.
all held your action until the last guy in the initiative fired off his attack. And they
Yep.
all slammed into the boss at once, and you guys took out like 90% of his health in one shot.
Yeah, we had a rogue shoot them with a crossbow. The barbarian threw a javelin at him. I cast like scorching ray or whatever. and then someone else did like ray of whatever. I don't remember.
Ray of sickness.
Yeah, it was
and then
ray
there
of
was
sickness,
also lightning from
Squigs. Yeah. That was just like if you, like I said, if you coordinate all of your attacks correctly and you actually hold your spells and if you feel safe enough to not lose them from attacks or what else, then you could do some hefty damage on the first turn of combat and totally sway your chances of winning.
I have a secret to tell you guys. In that encounter, actually, you guys one-shotted the boss. If I had been using the health as written, you guys would have one-shotted the boss.
And then you gave him a little bit extra, didn't you?
I very quickly used maximum hit points that he could possibly have. I switched it at the last second.
That makes me feel even better because we still promptly killed him not much later.
So that just goes to speak volumes, all right? So
how effective this can be.
Any DMs out there listening, if your players are very strategic and do stuff like that, be prepared if you want a combat that'll last. Be prepared with swarms of minions, and maybe that was a fake boss. Maybe the real boss comes out, and it's somebody who's way too powerful for them to even try that on.
Your biggest tool as a dungeon master is the fact that the players don't know what you planned.
Yeah, you could throw anything at them, and they'd be like,
"Wow,
whoa, I can't believe that he planned that. That's insane." And really, you just made it up the whole time.
Like literally that second. But yeah. There's kind of quite a bit on the ready action, but I think we covered most of it here.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about with readying actions.
I think we covered pretty much all of it, though.
But yeah, in older editions, though, the ready to action was treated like the wish spell. So, like, if you said, I hold this action for the next person that walks through the door, the next person walks through the door. The DM doesn't even have to tell you who it is. It's just like the next person walks through the door, all of your guys' actions trigger. And then as he's describing it, he'll basically tell you who you see. it's like, oh no,
that was our neighbor Bob from down the street. Oh no.
The reason
he's holding a cup. Oh no, he needed sugar.
The reason I like the 5th edition way of doing it over past editions is because I think it makes more sense to do it the way 5th edition does, because you're an adventuring party of heroes. You're not normal people. You're going to have a heroic level of reaction speed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're definitely meant to be powerful in 5th edition compared to previous editions.
Yeah. And that's up to be determined by different DMs. Me and Michael prefer it this way, and Ben prefers it that way, and I mean, as long as everyone understands that at the beginning of the game, that's totally okay.
Me and Jacob are very cautious whenever we're playing in Ben's game and we ready actions.
Yeah.
We learned at an early point in our game.
Yeah. I have promptly not shot Michael many times after that time.
Even though I killed his character.
Yep. Moving on, though. Me and Michael get back at each other over and over again.
If you want to hear that story, go to session 3.
Yeah.
Maybe it was session 2. I don't know.
So
session 2.
Here's the thing, Michael. I don't have to worry about killing your character because Ben does it for me. The next action is the search action.
Yikes.
This is a kind of an uncommon one to be used in combat. But, maybe you are like trying to do some scouting and it all goes south and you're inside someone's office and guards are like coming in, like about to come through the door, and you just barely have the initiative above them. You're going to use the search action and just look around the last second. What can you see on this desk or in drawers? And, this is you using that search action. Most likely the DM will ask for either a perception or investigation check, depending on what exactly you're searching, whether you're searching with just your eyes or you're rummaging. And then you will get to find whatever you find, and in the split second decide whether you want to steal it or not or whatever.
Yeah. There's really not a lot to add on this one. It's really just
pretty straightforward.
Searching for something for 6 seconds.
Yeah.
I do that at work. Honestly, if I were to describe my work in terms of D&D, I use the search action more times than I can even count. Like, some guy walks in, I need this light bulb, and I'm just like, search action. quickly perceive the store. Do I know where this is? Yes, go there. Yes, okay, here it is. Like, 12 seconds, 6 seconds to do the search action, and then 6 seconds to interact with object.
Yeah. But yeah, so the next action we are here to talk about is the use an object action. And this one, I'm pretty sure almost all of us here rule differently than in the book.
Yeah.
Typically in the book, the use an object action is one of your main actions. So you could use this to drink a healing potion or use an item or yada yada yada, whatever. But I think most of us are pretty lenient about this being a bonus action or an action.
Or
just kind of depending on, or a free action, depending on who you're talking to. I personally am okay with, during certain instances of, for me, like health potions, I allow either action or bonus. You can choose. But most other like items or other things that you're doing will most likely use an action depending on what it is. It's kind of like a decide in the moment kind of a decision.
Well, yeah. So like use an object, it can also kind of think of it as interacting with your environment. So maybe you want to get a handful of dust to throw at somebody. Like you're in the desert and you just want to pick up some sand or something, throw it in somebody's eyes. Maybe while you're running at them, your DM allows you to use a free action to just quickly scoop up some sand while you're running.
Yeah.
I was just about to say that. In my games, I allow people to interact with an object, like picking it up or quickly doing something to it that doesn't require complex, motions as part of their movement.
Yeah.
Like you can pick something up, or you can throw a switch, or you can do something, as long as it's quick and easy.
Another good example is a lot of the times in Ben's game, me and Michael, mostly me, will try and like jump up things, do random flips or whatever, just asking Ben, can I please make an acrobatics check to try and get up here faster than I normally could? And Ben goes, for the cost of this much movement, you can do that. And that's kind of another, it's not exactly using an object, but it is kind of under this category
it's interacting with the environment.
Interacting with the environment.
Which I honestly think is probably a better way of thinking of it, because I mean anything around you, even the objects around you, that's all your environment. So if you think about it as interacting with your environment, because you don't necessarily have to use a singular thing for this action to come into play.
Yeah. But yeah. This one could be a pretty lenient rule, depending on your DM, but just make sure that you can, if you feel very important, if you are very sure that you want it to be ruled in this certain way as a player, just try and talk to your DM beforehand and, clear the air before it's a problem in game. And always remember that what the DM says goes.
Also, when talking to your DM, bring up some of the things that we talked about as to why we personally all rule it the way that we do, because not everybody immediately jumps to the thought of, oh yeah, that makes sense to be able to just quickly grab something while you're moving. Not everybody thinks of it that way. They think of it very cut and dry, black and white, the way it is in the book.
Yeah, and it's just always try to be sure that you clear that air before it's a problem actually at the table.
And if they say no, don't argue.
Yeah, I fully agree that this is 100% what session zeros are for. And yeah, if it is cut and dry and like you're at the table and the discussion is coming up, at the end of the day, the DM is the DM and you're the player, and it's their world and they run it one way. You can run it another way in your game. You got to take what he says. He or she says.
We did not always know this, by the way. We didn't always follow that rule of what the DM says goes. That we have learned from our mistakes. Please learn from our mistakes. We've had so many arguments that almost got us kicked out of public places where we were playing. It's just like,
yeah.
We
I mean,
speak from experience.
There's nothing worse than getting so mad about something in D&D that you're starting to cause kind of rifts in your friendships with people, and I've seen that happen at our table. Like,
and also
people have issues with each other from it.
Games have ended early sometimes because we were like so bad about arguing something. But yeah. We should probably just move on. That's the using an object or interacting with your environment. The next and final action that we're going to cover today is the improvising an action. This is the etc. option. Obviously, this is where creative minds excel, and you can think up whatever you want to do. If there's anything that you think that you might want to do during your turn that we didn't already cover, then this is where this would fall. You can normally this would be like a pitch to your DM, being like, all right, listen, Ben, I want to do yada 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 yada. What do you think? And Ben might go, okay, this is going to use your blank. And then you could go, maybe I don't want to do this because it's going to use my whole action. And then you can try and think about, all right, what if I kind of shorten it and maybe it's my bonus action now? And, you could just kind of discuss at the table then and there what it might pertain to exactly.
Yeah, and another great way that this action can be used is if a player wants to do something very complicated that would normally require multiple actions to do, but in this case, you think, you know what, we don't have all day for him to try to do this one thing. We can't have him doing a triple backflip in the air for the next 3 turns. So what we're going to do is condense it all down into one action, and I'm going to choose a check that makes all of these things reasonable, or a couple checks in a row, right? And we're going to go from there, right?
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite things about this whole thing is, like, you can, if you think of something and you're not on game day, you're not at the table playing or on Discord playing, whatever outlet you have for playing the game.
Yeah.
If you think of something really cool that you think would fit your character that you want to try and do in combat, but you're not sure that it's something that would work, go to your DM, talk to them, text them, do whatever you need to do to figure out if they'll allow it. One of my favorite things is when a DM just goes, I don't know, give it a shot. Because then it's like, I want to do it. You have to determine, do you want to do it bad enough to risk failing? Is it cool enough that you could even get praise from everybody else at the table for even thinking about trying it?
like
great.
a thing that we already talked about in this podcast in earlier episodes, but maybe you didn't listen to that episode or whatever. But an example of this could be me requesting to jump from one tower all the way over to another tower that is like 50, 60 feet away, but like over 100-foot drop, and me requesting to try and jump towards an enemy on the lower tower and aerodynamically use wind resistance to make me not miss and die and sucker punch him in the back of the head. That is kind of improvising an action. What Ben did for that, what his improvisation was, is that he had me use an acrobatics check that was part of my main action of, or a part of my movement of jumping off of the tower and whatnot. And, I had to beat whatever DC, and if I passed or failed, if I failed, I could fall to my death, and if I passed, I could maybe hit this guy in the back of the head. Maybe not. I don't know. That's based off of my attack roll. But, that's kind of an example of what maybe an improvising an action might be.
Yeah, and if
he succeeded, by the way.
if you've seen Critical Role, which you've at least heard of it, you've probably heard of the Matt Mercer effect, which is where everybody compares their DMs to Matt Mercer, and it is the bane of every DM's existence at this point. because a lot of players will nonstop compare their DM to Matt Mercer, and it's annoying. But this is where something that Matt Mercer kind of does, and like that whole group is kind of famous for, rule of cool. Yep. This is where this comes into play so much.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I actually learned about rule of cool before I ever heard about critical role. So like I started using rule of cool back before I even met you guys. And
that's just who I associate it with when I think rule of cool.
Yeah. But like
now, guys,
the funny thing is
hold here for a second. Maybe I'm out of the loop here. What exactly do you guys mean by rule of cool? Please do tell.
Well, we'll be happy to tell you. If it's cool enough, if you think to yourself, this would be awesome if this happened, and it will not break my entire story if they succeed, let them roll for it. Let it happen. Let them try.
For example, trying to jump from one tower to another to sucker punch somebody in the back of the head. That sounds pretty cool.
Here's the thing. Rule of cool actually goes a little bit deeper than that. So another thing that Matt Mercer's great at, and a lot of people do, the rule of cool also kind of states that you should describe everything as it's happening. Every single piece of combat, describe it with extreme detail. Act it out if you have to. Make it awesome. Make your players feel like everything they're doing is important, and everything they're doing adds to the moment. Like, I remember we've met Bailey. Bailey's been a guest on our show before. You guys know Bailey. I actually kind of confused him the first time I whipped out Rule of Cool, because we were playing, it was me, Hayden, and him playing at like 3 a.m. We were all tired, and he was like on the couch, barely paying attention to what was going on, right? And he's like, I rolled to attack. And he's like, I got like an 18. And I was like, all right. So as you swing your sword, he's like, wait, what's going on? I was like, I'm describing what you did. I'm describing what's happening. Right? I was like, as you swing your sword, this guy brings his sword up, and he barely deflects it off. But as you stumble back, you bring it back around, and you would like cut into his arm, and you like cleave this huge gash across his arm and across his chest. And he was like, he sat up, and he was like, yo, that's cool. And I was like, and that got him back into the game. That like woke him up and was like, yo, I'm actually back into this. Like,
yeah,
I stopped being bored because we're not just rolling dice anymore.
Yeah, that stuff, it keeps your players engaged. It makes it more enjoyable for the whole table, including yourself.
Yeah.
And as a DM, and even as players, if you really want to like get into the game and act silly, make silly voices or talk funny, like, do what you want, man. Don't let other people dictate how you can play.
Yeah.
Have fun with it.
Freaking rule of cool it up. Every single action on this list that we have just gone over, every time you want to take one of those actions, describe exactly what you want to do. Like, instead of just being like, I want to attack, just be like, no, I want to take my greatsword, and I want to come up, and I want to step to the right and swing up from the ground, dragging dirt through the ground, like, throwing it up into this guy's face, trying to block it as I'm swinging at him. And if you roll high enough, your DM might just be like, the dust cloud blocks your sword entirely, and you just come up and hit this guy. And what I'll do in that case, if people describe it like that, no matter what the action is, I'll add something extra that they get on top of that. I'll be like, he's blinded for the next round. You just threw dirt in his eyes with your sword attack.
Or like, maybe you infected his newly made wound with all those dirt, you know.
Yeah. or specifically,
the dirt got in his skin, and now he's weaker. I don't know.
Or specifically, bro, like, if you swing, like, I'm going for his legs. Like, if you just keep going, like, I really want to make sure this man cannot move, you might succeed. Like, you might roll to the point where I'm like, his leg is not moving. He's done. He's like, he's there. He's down. You can do that. That's a thing in my world, at least, in my games. And I encourage everyone to use Rule of Cool to determine how the game flows. It's great.
But yeah. So that's just kind of our traveler's guide to actions you can take during combat. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Yeah. How and also what our rulings are for certain rules that are kind of acceptable amongst others that, are less likely maybe ruled by the book and sometimes more homebrewed rules rather than the book alternatives.
Yeah, don't be afraid to kind of make some of these rules like your own. Like, just make sure that you disclose any rule change to your players.
Yeah. And also, like, okay, we say that, like, what the DM says goes, but also DMs listen to your players because everyone's here to have fun. And if no one likes your rule, then maybe you should change your rule because everyone wants to have fun here, right? So, you could always change a rule mid-game, and, like, if everyone is deciding together that, like, this rule kind of sucks, it could be fun, it could be more fun this other way, maybe you should change that rule, and then maybe everyone will start having a little bit more fun,
Yeah.
Be civil.
Be civilized. Yeah, because believe it or not, DMs, if you're just throwing rule changes out left and right that no one knows about, and you might find yourself in a situation where you are the only one at the table having fun.
Mm-hmm. And we don't want that. Nobody wants that.
While
I hope that you don't want that.
Yeah, I hope no one wants that. It sucks when that guy at the table is the DM, right? Because, like, what do you say?
Yeah, while it's important for the DM to have just as much fun as the players, you don't want to have fun at the expense of the players.
Yes, that's first edition and second edition and AD&D. That's those versions.
At the same time, if all the players aren't having fun, but the DM is, and it's about a certain rule, players, don't be jerks about it. Be civil with your DM. Come up to him and be like, "Hey, we kind of don't really like this rule. We don't think it's stupid or anything. We think it's reasonable, but we don't really enjoy combat with this rule how it is." And, have a discussion about it. Don't be jerks about it to each other, because at the end of the day, you're all friends trying to have fun, right?
You want to like stay friends and make new friendships in the game, but you don't want to lose them.
Believe it or not, DMs aren't robots. They're people, and they have feelings.
we have all made tons of friends just by playing D&D with people, and that is one of the best feelings. It sucks when you lose friends to D&D.
Yeah.
And as I saw today on a post that I reposted to our official Traveler's Tips and Tales Tumblr, D&D is a gateway drug to making friends.
Yes.
Yep. But anyways, to end out this episode, I would like to direct everyone over to Michael. Michael, where can all these nice listeners that are listening to our podcast right now, where can they find us out on the interwebs?
Yeah, so if you're not watching us on YouTube right now, you can go to our YouTube, Traveler's Tips and Tales. We also have a review of Tosh's Cauldron of Everything that you can check out. It's just kind of a brief overview that we did, our thoughts on it. You can also go to our Instagram at Traveler's Tips and Tales. You can go to our Facebook at Traveler's Tips and Tales. You can go to our Tumblr, which Ben just mentioned, at Traveler's Tips and Tales. You can go to our Twitter at Tipstales. You can check out our Patreon, Travelers Tips and Tales. And
Michael, hold on, one second here. What might these nice people find on our Patreon here?
I'm glad you asked, because we have things for these people such as homebrew items and NPC stat blocks and monster stat blocks created by our very own Traveler Ben.
Wow. And just as of last week, we made a stat block for each of us that are kind of ridiculous in every way, shape, or form, but they exist.
Yeah, feel free to use them in your games. We shall post them. They shall be public.
They will be free. You don't have to subscribe to the Patreon to see those. They will also be on our Facebook and our website. If we can get them to fit on Instagram, then we'll put them on Instagram. I'm going to see what I can do.
Post them to our Tumblr as well.
Yeah, so Tumblr. So you can check them out on like any of our resources.
Yeah.
You can also get us an email if you want to send us any stories or any thoughts that you have about our podcast or what you want us to talk about, at travelerstipsandtales@gmail.com.
Yeah.
And I told you we'd be posting to our website. That's going to be travelerstipsandtales.com. So go ahead and check that out as well. Also, one more thing to the Patreon. Thank you, Ben's mom.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
She is a very nice lady.
She is of the tier where she gets shouted out on our episodes. You can also be on that tier if you're a mad lad and love us that much, and then we will respond and give you all sorts of good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think at some point we're gonna try to do some Patreon only giveaways once we actually get enough people to kind of constitute that. But yeah, I mean, you guys definitely help us out by supporting us, and we are able to constantly try and bring better content forward whenever we are supported financially like that. So
yeah, but I think I'd like to use my bonus action, or actually maybe this is a free action because it's just me speaking. But until next time, adventure awaits.